Hello and welcome back to our tutorial. So in this video we're going to talk about data types and variables. So in the previous video you learned how to display an output in the console using system.out.println, and this time we're going to manipulate our source code using data types and variables. Alright, in Java there is what we call primitive data types. So there are 8 primitive data types. Right, so let's type 8 primitive data types here. So what are data types? Data types, they determine what type of data a variable can hold for operation. So that means whatever the data type of the variable that has been declared, only that type of data can be assigned to the variable. You cannot assign another data coming from a different data type. Alright, so in programming, with to be specific with Java, there are 4 numerical data types, which are byte, short, integer, as well as long. And also we have a data type for numerical data, just like float and double. I mean real numbers, numerical numbers that have decimal points, as well as we have character and boolean. Alright, so these byte, short, int, and long, they can hold integer values. Alright, they just differ in regards to the sizes for the variables we're going to pair with. And for float and double, these are the data types wherein the types of data, numerical data that contains decimal values. And for character, any symbols that belong to the ASCII table, American Standard Code Information Interchange. And as for boolean, variables with boolean data type can only hold the true or false value. Alright, so to visibly see the examples of these data types in our actual code, it's better we write it. So let's type int here. Let's just say my int. So we started with byte, so let's just give byte, for example, byte. So my byte here, we can give any number actually, like 35, and it has upper value actually. So for byte, later on let's just going to write it. For short, let's have my short here. Type for short we can write like 1000, 1500, or 30,000, for example. And as for long, oops, short, I added wrong symbol here. Right, long, my long. So by the way, for the long, whenever you are to assign data for long data type, you need to add the letter L right after the data. So long, it can support like millions of data. Maybe let's just write like 9 million here and type the letter L. And then integer, I forgot. So my int, oops, oopsie. Right, small letter by the way, and let's write around 2 million, like that, semicolon. Alright, so the differences in regards to these numerical data types is that the sizes that they can give for each of the variable, because a byte, it can only have I mean your RAM will allocate like 1 byte of data. If you want to create a variable with a byte data type, then a space of 1 byte will be allocated within the memory. And then if it is short, we have 2 bytes. For long, it is 8 bytes, and for integer, it is for 4 bytes. Alright, and for byte, it can support like value. The lowest value is negative 128 up until positive 127. And as for short, it can support like 32,768 up until to positive 32,762. 67, I mean. And then for long, it can support like millions. Like the lowest is negative million I guess this isn't million, more than a million. Anyways, this is the actual value. 327-372-036-854-775-808 up until to positive. The positive of this one is the upper number. Just have -1, 7, right? And for integer, it can support until billion, 2 billion. So the lowest is negative 2 billion, 147,483,648 up until to positive 2,147,483,647. Alright, if you want to call the identifiers of these variables, we already learned that we need to have this statement system without that print line to display output for in the console. So we can also use this one. So we just need to pass the identifier of our variables. So let's give it an example here, like my byte. Let's copy this because we're going to display as output the value of our variables. So my short, and then my long, and my int. Alright, so our source code looks good. So let's just click build and run. Let's build this. So by the way, Java ignores white spaces, so you can just erase it if you want to, or you can just leave space for easy reading. Right after the source code has been built successfully, just click play. Alright, so by the way, don't wonder why my output panel is in the right side and it displays vertically, because I put it there really because I just want to show the output. I just want you to see clearly the output of our source code. Right, so by the way, aside from calling directly the output of, the identifiers of our source code, you can also concatenate the identifiers of our variables. Let's say for example, you type a string here together with our identifier of our variables. So the value of my byte is, you can do this one. However, you just have to add plus symbol in between your string data as well as your identifier, my byte. So this indicates that we are trying to, or we want this variable, the data of this variable, to concatenate with this string here. So we can just copy this together with the plus symbol just to save time typing, right? And let's change the output of the prompt, my short here, and then my long, and then my int. Alright, so for long data, by the way, don't forget to add letter L. And alright, everything looks good. So let's click build and run. Alright, updating, and then there you have it. If you notice, we got our output, right? The value of my byte is, got 30,000, and then we have 9 million, and then 2 million for our integer. Alright, aside from the 4 numerical data types, you can also add that we can create variables using different data types. So let's say for example, we have float and double. So we have float. Let's declare my float, and then let's give it a number, the data we assign for our float for a while. Maybe let's put 1.8 1.9. But by float, you need to add letter F here beside your actual data, because this will indicate that this data is float. It's just part of the syntax, by the way. And then you have to let's create another floating value variable. Let's name it my double, and maybe let's put it like 3.8. So as for double, there's no need for you to add anything. And the difference between float and double is that float can hold 4 bytes. I mean, the space that is going to be allocated for float variable is 4 bytes, and for double it's going to be 8 bytes. Alright, so since we want to display as output the value of these variables, we just need to call their identifiers just like what we did with the other variables. Alright, so let's just copy these statements here. Let's add 2 more. The value of my float and the value of my double. Alright, so we are to change the identifiers. Since we want to call this my float, and then let's change this my float here, and also my double here. Alright, so let's click build, and then let's click play. Alright, so if you notice, we got our output by each line. So by the way, another thing you need to realize for print line method is that this print line method has a built-in new line functionality already. So if in any case you are to use this function, the next one will be displayed in the next line, just like what you're seeing here. Alright, so that is because we're using print line. So if you want to use the print, then instead of print line, you are going to use print. And what will happen, these output here will be concatenated to this one here. So let's say let's build and run so that we can see it, what I mean. Alright, so the value of my byte is this 35, and then so what you can see, the second print line has been concatenated to the first one. Alright, so that's why you need to be very careful in using print. So to fix this one, if you really want to use print, you can add the so-called escape sequence \n, so that it will add a new line to our statement, and it will not concatenate the other. So if you notice, it added the, by the way, I added the \n in the is. Alright, so here after displaying the variables, I mean the data of the variable, it concatenated, I mean it proceeded to the new line, but it concatenated still the first one. So I guess I did it wrong. The best thing to do is this instead. You can add here plus and then \n right after the variable. So we can do this one still. So let's see. Let's click build and then let's run it. Alright, so we got what we wanted. So to avoid some troubles, you better use print line instead. So if you're going to use print line, then there's no need for you to add these here at the end of our identifier variable. Alright, let's proceed with the other data types. So let's declare another data types that is for character, like my character. For character, we just have to use single quotes in between the data in which we're going to assign for the character variable. Alright, so maybe let me just add the $sign, and then we have boolean. So my boolean, boolean, by the way, it can only hold like true or false. Alright, so we use it mostly in the conditional statements and for looping. Alright, so let's just by default let's just put true there. Right, and then we can add another print line statements using system.out.print line, so that we can display the value of the other variables, my character there and my boolean. Right, so careful with the identifier. Try to change the identifier, my character, and then my boolean. Right, so click build and let's say run our code. Right, so there you go. You'll notice the value of byte, my byte is 35, my short is 3000, and so on and so forth. Right, so that's how you're going to deal with the variables being declared with data types. And in the next video, I'm going to show you different types another style wherein you can declare your variables first and then just assign data later on. And also I will show you some basic arithmetic using Java language inside our print line function, print line method Alright, thank you so much for bearing with me, and enjoy. See you in the next video. Bye bye.